Good afternoon, Mr. Krishnaji. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Hi, Deepak.
Hi. How are you?
How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thanks.
Morning, good afternoon, everyone. I, Kajol, welcome you for this webinar on repowering wind energy system in Tamil Nadu. My colleague Deepak and I will be moderating the webinar today. He has already mentioned about that we will be recording, and the recording link will be available on the WRI website post the event on the events page. So coming on to the webinar, the discussion on the wind energy in Tamil Nadu, we know Tamil Nadu had taken a major stride in wind energy generation quite earlier than the other states. Some of the turbines are more than 30-year-old, and many of these turbines are below 500 kilowatt in their size and capacity. With the new technological development, there is a scope for installation of wind turbines with a capacity of 1 megawatt or more. This means repowering or decommissioning the old projects. Both, both a repower or a decommissioning project would require new permits and approvals. Repowering can involve decommissioning if a project is to undergo a big change in the infrastructure, including the implementation of the large generator, taller towers, longer blades, or the access to the roads and deeper foundations, and even the upgradation for the transmission and distribution, along with the electrical equipments. So the webinar today would gather these thoughts from the experts in the wind energy sector and asset management to tackle and brainstorm on the challenges that has been faced by various OEMs as well as the already who are into the market of wind energy, and learn from different other aspects or from the best practices from them as well. And further, we will also be looking into the repowering policy that was introduced in 2017. So what are the challenges of this policy and how we can take this forward? So already Deepak has briefed you on the agenda for today. So I'll just quickly run through this. We will be starting with the opening presentation by Mr. Krishanjeet from IDM, and that will help us in getting into the panel's discussion, which is scheduled for 45 minutes, followed by question and answers and the closing remark. So without wasting much time, we will get into the first presentation. For today, we have with us Mr. Krishanjeet. He has more than 12 years of experience, and over the period, he has played a key role in executing various consulting assignments in distribution and renewable energy sector and transmission sector. In 2018, IDM has done a study to estimate the total repowering, estimating the total repowering wind energy capacity in India and critical challenges in moving forward if we have to adopt a repowering in India. So now I'll request Mr. Krishanjeet to take us through his presentation, where he will be focusing more onto the repowering capacity and potential in Tamil Nadu. Over to you, Mr. Krishanjeet.
Yeah, thanks, Kajol. Hi. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon. Yeah, I'll just share my presentation. Is everybody able to see?
It's visible, but not in full screen. No?
Oh, let me just put it in this full screen. Now is it visible? Deepak, can you just confirm? Is the full screen visible now?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Not yet. It still shows. It still shows. Your full slide deck. So.
Oh, is it?
Maybe you want to click on resume slideshow. I see that.
Yeah, let me just do that.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So this presentation is about a study which IDM had carried out in around 2000, and this is regarding repowering of old wind turbines in India as a whole, and we had also looked at some of those specific states. While assessing the potential, the state-wise potential also we had assessed, and we also looked at some of those sites in specific sites in a couple of states like Tamil Nadu and Gujarat. Yeah. So I'll take you through our study and some of those findings, which probably would set a context for our discussions going forward. Yeah. So broad outline, background to the repowering study, then repowering potential assessment. And we had carried out as part of the study, detailed stakeholder consultation to identify what are those key challenges perceived by various stakeholders, whether it is developer, whether it is regulator, whether it is nodal agencies or ministries. So to that extent, we had done some stakeholder consultations so as to identify those key challenges, which I would highlight as key challenges and solutions or potential solutions. So some suggestions also we had received, which we had actually covered in our study. And then I'll lastly touch upon what are the key interventions required for implementation of repowering or taking forward repowering projects in India. Yeah. So background for repowering study. So as Kajal was mentioning in the initial remarks, basically most of you must be knowing that development of wind projects started way back in mid-90s in India. So the first generation turbines, which were sub 500 kW range, those were basically installed during those initial days and then initial years, and they were installed at good windy sites. When I say good windy sites, in fact, if I have to actually have a comparison with the present day, it would yield anywhere in the range of 25% of CF or 25 to 35% of CF range. So these low capacity turbines were installed in this good windy sites, which actually gives us enough room for actually go for repowering. So that was our starting point or context why we were actually looking for this study. So this study was funded by Indo-German Energy Forum, and it was supported by MNRE and NIWAY. The objectives of this study was to understand, have an understanding of the global scenario, what is happening globally in terms of repowering, and as well as what are the challenges and influencing factors if one has to actually go for repowering in Indian context. Then we also looked at some of those financing requirements or so to say incentive mechanisms that is required for kickstarting such kind of projects in Indian context. Then we looked at what are the necessary policy or regulatory or other kind of interventions that is required for proliferation of such models. Lastly, we had, as I mentioned earlier, we had assessed some of the potential that is there in the key wind states and specifically in some of those states like Tamil Nadu and Gujarat. Yeah, so the study was divided into 4 major sections. Basically, first portion was market study for repowering, which necessarily involved assessment of which necessarily involved consultation process with stakeholders as well as study from the international scenario. Then based on discussions, we had evolved some business model which could be implemented, and then subsequently the implementation roadmap and covering various roles of various entities, and what are the kind of contractual frameworks that would be required, policy interventions that would be required, and all leading to a suggestive guidelines for repowering. So that was our that was the way it was structured. So coming to this potential assessment part. So basically, as of date, in FY 2020, closing September 2020, the installed capacity is around 38 gigawatt of it. So this development started from 1990s, and so this bar chart which I have presented here, that represents the yearly capacity addition, and that has taken place, wind capacity addition that has taken place. So one thing which we actually observed was basically for a period till 1998, basically the turbine capacity which got installed, the rating of the turbines which were majorly installed during this particular period was less than 500 kW. When I say less than 500 kW, I think it started from machines of the ratings to the tune of around 55 kW, then 90 kW, then 225 kW, and so forth. So such low range capacity machines were installed during the initial period. Then from the period 1998 to 2005, there were sub 1 megawatt capacity. That is basically 500 kW to 1 megawatt kind of range of turbine capacity was mostly installed. And beyond 2005, what we observed was it is multi-megawatt WTGs that was installed. So this again actually give us an indication of the kind of initial ratings of wind turbines which were installed, and then which throws up actually a potential for repowering. This chart which you can see now is basically again a breakup of the sub 1 megawatt kind of turbines. So till 2017, so I'm mentioning 2017 because that was the time when this study was carried out. So till 2017, if you take the statistics, there were around 19,500 WTGs which were installed, which were less than 1 megawatt capacity. And as you can see from the slide, mostly the population was mostly from the 200 to 250 kW range, as well as 700 to 1 megawatt range. So together, put together, this sub 1 megawatt capacity population, that was around, as I said, 19,500, which was actually constituting a capacity of, or megawatt capacity of, around 10,000 megawatt. So this was something which was the overall population that was there till 2017-18. Let's look at some of those benefits of repowering. Yes, obviously there is more wind power that is possible from the same area of land, because higher capacity machines are installed. Then fewer wind turbines, so that enhances the natural landscape, as well as higher capacity wind turbines are installed, and higher efficiency turbines. When I say higher efficiency, basically turbines, modern turbines are higher height and higher CEF machines. So those are the benefits. And then additionally, as far as grid integration is concerned, in the modern day or current day, there are many grid integration requirements that need to be met by the turbines, including some of the aspects like LVRT capability, or it should have actually reactive sourcing capability, or reactive when the turbines have to actually provide reactive capacity, reactive basically for voltage control. So these modern turbines definitely had this these additional characteristics which would benefit if one go for repowering. And then last but not the least, better appearance. Basically modern turbines were slow moving turbines and more visually pleasing in turbines. So these are some of those benefits of repowering. Now I'll just explain how we went about actually assessing the potential. So two major conditions which we were factoring was basically the first one, that is the vintage of the wind turbines. So we were considering only those wind turbines which were actually installed 15 years or before. So those were considered to be the ideal candidates. And the second factor was basically the capacity, the less than 1 megawatt kind of capacity turbines. So those turbines which were satisfying these two conditions were considered to be the ideal candidates. And likewise, we had assessed the potential for on all India basis and specific some sites of Tamil Nadu. The basic data which we had used here basically were from this wind directory, which is annually published by CECL. That was what was referred to for this particular study. Yeah, so this is basically the result of the assessment which we have carried out. So here, as you can see, this is basically the turbines which are installed prior to 2002 or up to 2002 and which are less than 1 megawatt capacity, less than sorry, up to 2002, in the sense that was basically 15 years before 2017. So that was the period before for period which was considered for potential assessment. So here, as you can see, we had assessed state by state what is the kind of total installed capacity of such kind of turbines, and arrived at a figure of around 1577, covering all the key RA-rich states or wind-rich states. And specifically saying the Tamil Nadu figures, if you see, it is having the highest out of this 1577 megawatt, that is 834 megawatt or something, which was this potential or ideal candidates is which we had actually found out for Tamil Nadu. Similarly, yeah, moving on. So Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra and Gujarat, so to say, were those major states where such significant potential was existing. Yeah, specifically in Tamil Nadu, we had looked at 4 good windy sites in Tamil Nadu, that is Muppandal, Pulavadi, Ketanur and Perungudi. So these 4 windy sites we had actually looked at specifically, and we have looked at the installations. So this blue graphs that you can see, there is the see here is basically the megawatt installed, and the red ones are basically those installations which are less than 500 kW, and the green ones are basically less than 500 kW, as well as which are installed up to 2002. So as you can see, in Muppandal it is 149.5 kW, sorry, megawatt. In Pulavadi it was 103, and Ketanur 76, and in Perungudi it was 87.6. So to put together basically around a potential of 414 megawatt from these 4 sites itself, which was identified, which could be actually which are immediate candidates for repowering, that was assessed as part of this study. Yeah, so that was those earlier slides were explaining basically the kind of installations that has happened up to 2002. But what about the prospects for future? So we also looked at what is the kind of population of less than 1 megawatt or sub 500 kW kind of installations going forward, that is after 2002. So from 2002 onward till up to 2017, we looked at, this is a specific case for Tamil Nadu. We had looked at for other states as well, since this is specific to discussion specific to Tamil Nadu, I was just highlighting this. So basically what we could see is even in 2017, there were installations, or this is basically number of wind turbines. This graph is basically for number of wind turbines. So here, even in 2017, around 9,000 or 9,500 number of wind turbines were installed, which were less than 1,000 megawatts. So this going forward, there is prospect. So in order to assess what could be the kind of future potential, what we did was we did one more exercise, that is basically 10 years down the line, or as on 2027, what could be the kind of potential based on this sub 1 megawatt kind of wind turbines which were installed in the past. So here basically we had looked at wind turbines which are installed up to March 2012. So here the numbers were like it was adding up to, considering all the states, 8,500 megawatt, and Tamil Nadu again was number 1 in this case with a potential of around 3979 megawatt. Yeah, so this is that combined results. So here one could actually see Tamil Nadu as on, if one has to look at the blue graphs are basically as on potential, and the red graphs are, red bar charts are as on 2027, 10 years down the line, what could be the kind of potential that is available for repowering. Other states also, you could see Gujarat, Rajasthan, Maharashtra, and Karnataka also had a significant potential, so to say. Yeah, so coming to this stakeholder consultation which we had carried out, basically we wanted to actually identify what are those key challenges that are perceived by various stakeholders. So some of this have been listed here. First and foremost is basically if one has to actually look for repowering of an old wind site. So old wind site necessarily not necessarily will be actually owned by a single person. In fact, there are multiple turbine owners. So once I have to actually repower that particular site, what would be the nuances associated with that? How will I be able to actually manage the ownership factor? Similar was the case with land ownership. Land of wind or land in a particular wind farm was also actually being owned by multiple owners. So how do we actually address that issue? Then there are offtake arrangements, existing offtake arrangements with various utilities, or so to say, there are captive arrangements, there are third-party sale arrangements. So how do we, what are the changes that we need to do with the PPAs, or what are the potential issues surrounding that? Then another important factor was basically, yes, we are doing repowering. So to that extent, basically we are increasing the capacity, and the grid evacuation capacity need to be adequate to evacuate the increased or incremental capacity that is coming out of repowering, that is resulting out of repowering. So that what are the feasibility of evacuation infrastructure? Then another issue was basically what would we do with the old turbines, whether there was sufficient market for this used turbines. Then lastly, there are issues surrounding to basically there would be incremental capital cost when you go for repowering. So what should be the regulatory treatment towards that? So some of these challenges we had actually discussed with stakeholders. And when I say stakeholders, it spanned over state nodal agencies, state utilities, SERCs, industry associations, developers, as well as WTG manufacturers. So there were these issues were highlighted, and then some of those suggestions also came from multiple stakeholders, which we have actually listed here. So let's go issue by issue. So first one was basically the ownership related issue. So how do we address that ownership related issue when there are multiple owners in the same wind farm? How are we going to actually tackle that? Because not all would be in fact willing also for going for a repowering of wind farms. So to that extent, some of the suggestions which came up was basically to have an SPV kind of a structure, or a project company kind of a structure, wherein actually WTG owners can have their equity in that SPV company, and at the same time they can share the revenue in terms of the equity they have put in. So this was one of the suggestions which had come up, and based on which we had also proposed some business model in the report, which we are now discussing. Another issue, as I mentioned, was evacuation. So definitely all those lower capacity turbines which were connected, particularly in Tamil Nadu, they were connected to 11 kV lines. So when we are actually looking for higher capacity turbines, there should definitely be a upgradation in the evacuation infrastructure. So higher evacuation infrastructure is required, and then to that extent, basically there should be support also from the utility side or the transmission utility side to actually develop evacuation infrastructure. In some cases, the pooling station itself need to be upgraded. So these were some of the issues and which were highlighted. Then again, as land, as I mentioned, there again there was this issue of multiple ownership, and then whether if we are proposing a SPV kind of a structure, will SPV be able to actually utilize and what are the modalities surrounding that? So some of the suggestions were basically like SPV should be able to actually take this land on lease, or they should have some right to use of this land to actually develop such projects and operate. So such was some of those suggestions. Moving forward, offtake arrangement. As I said, there is current offtake arrangements with utilities under FIT route, current offtake arrangement with captive users, then with third-party sales. So basically, the issue was basically issue which were highlighted by DISCOMs were like they didn't want to actually move out of the existing arrangement. They wanted to actually maintain the existing PPA because they were definitely of lower tariffs. So to that extent, basically, they definitely wanted that PPAs to be protected, at least for the residual life. So to that extent, that need to be actually factored in while we are going for repowering. Then another important aspect which we were looking at was basically need for tariff incentives or need for incentives, so to say, because those initial PPAs or older PPAs, they were at lower tariffs, and currently when you are going for repowering, there is additional investment, additional capital investment, and so to say the cost of generation would be higher. So in that context, but at the same time, utilities may not be actually willing to go for a escalated rate for I mean in this sense, increased rate for the procurement. So there should be some incentive mechanism which would compensate the project developer to actually meet this shortfall. So to that extent, there is a incentive that is required. Then again, yeah, utility, the issue of PPA have to be actually there. They would not allow any prior termination of PPAs. So this was anyway discussed along with the offtake arrangement. Yeah, so considering these challenges, some of the key interventions which were suggested were basically there should be intervention from multiple stakeholders or multiple authorities. Like there should be policy intervention, there should be regulation interventions, institutional, as well as there should be specific repowering programs that should be, framed or formulated to promote this issue. So policy major thing to be highlighted was basically the need for a long-term policy the framework. And one of the important aspect in the policy or expectation from the policy is basically to have a incentive mechanism to be devised. When you come to actually regulations or regulatory intervention, basically there would be instances of there would be requirement of modification of existing PPA. So to that extent, a model PPA kind of document is something which regulator could come up with. Or if it is for the case of captive or wheeling in kind of models, one of the things which we observed during while working out the incentive was basically the concessional wheeling banking kind of thing that actually had to remain and for this to work out. So to that extent, regulator need to actually continue with these concessional wheeling and banking in provisions for repowered projects. Then coming to institutional interventions, when I say institutions, mostly looking at nodal agencies, state nodal agencies who need to actually maintain this resource data or the site data, potential site data, which potential project developers can use. Then importantly, they should also be endorsing the DPRs of this repowering project. They should be recommending these incentive schemes to MNRE, or so to say, whosoever is going to actually provide the incentives. So these were some of those interventions required, and then specific programs could be designed. State-specific programs could be designed, addressing some of those aspects like eligibility conditions. Then what should be the roles and responsibility of various entities? What are the contractual frameworks required? And standard documentation and term sheets, so on and so forth. So these were some of those specific interventions which were highlighted. So I think, Deepak, I'll stop here, and then we could discuss as we go along.
Thank you, Mr. Krishanjeet. That was an interesting presentation to lay the context and to help us get into the panel discussion. As you have rightly mentioned, on Tamil Nadu has the highest potential for repowering, being it the existing or even in the upcoming years in the future as well. And the 4 sites that you mentioned has the highest potential. That definitely help us in framing the panels when once we get into the understanding more key challenges and the suggestions and interventions that you have mentioned on the either being on the ownership or the grid infrastructure or the land usage. So now I'll move on to the panel discussion. Just give me a second. So on the panel, we have Mr. Krishanjeet, General Manager IDAM. We just heard him during the presentation time. On the next, we have Mr. Krishna Nair, President of Indian Wind Power Association Northern Region Council. He comes with 25 years of experience in wind energy sector, and we look forward to hearing your thoughts on the regulatory and policy issues. Next on the panel, we have Mr. Captain Kishore. He's the director, Green Tech Megawatt. He has 45 years of experience working in maritime and energy. And we are excited to hear your experience as well, especially aligning the energy sector with the oil and gas sector and seeing how these synergies can be built and what learnings can there be for the energy wind sector. Next, we have on the panel, Lakshmi Vedanath working with DNVGL as Head of Section Asset Operations and Management. She is enthusiastic about optimization, repowering, digitalization, and is exploring how to add more value to the customers in the present digital, dynamic, and disrupted era of big data, machine learning. We look forward to hear from you on digitalization in wind energy sector and using the enhanced monitoring and analytical tools to enhance and increase the asset performance. Next, we have Daniel Liu from Wood Mackenzie. He is Principal Secretary in the Power and Renewable Energy sector. He holds an expertise in operations strategy, OPEX, digital technology, and asset management. We are sure your experience sharing on especially on the EU and Asia Pacific market would help us align how India can learn and will be helpful in the future as well. And this session will be moderated by Deepak Krishnan, Associate Director, WRI. Deepak has around 14 years of experience working in energy sector. And prior to this, he was working with Deloitte and PwC. I'll request Deepak to start the session.
Kajol, and warm welcome to all panelists. So we roughly have about 40 minutes for this panel, and there are 5 of you. So roughly, keeping about 8 minutes per intervention. So I do have a set of questions for each one of you, and in addition to that, and prior to that, actually would request if you could also spend about a minute or two to talk about what you are doing currently in addition to what Kajol has just outlined. So may I start with Ms. Lakshmi initially. So one is, Krishanjeet spoke about the potential for repowering, and we saw that Tamil Nadu has the highest potential, at least looking at the 15-year vintage. Of course, there's the future set of repowering opportunities are a separate calculation. Given your work in DNVGL, what are you finding as you interact with clients? Is there excitement for repowering, or are they still in a wait and watch mode? If you could, help us understand what would be, say, a preliminary idea of the costs, and if this increase in the energy yield, actually justifies the investment that the company has to put into ensure the repowering is.
Yeah, thank you, Deepak. Just to make sure I'm audible.
Yes.
Thank you. So first, to answer your question about what we hear in general from the industry, there definitely is a lot of excitement around repowering, especially sites in Tamil Nadu which are quite old, and that's kind of top of the list when it comes to talking about repowering. And as we discussed earlier, the sites which have a lot of potential, if we just take a small example, if we look at let's say 250 kilowatt machines being there in a site, and there are about, let's say, 20 turbines, which comes to about 5 megawatt. But if we see when we try to repower, then we can have like that 5 megawatt with just 2.5 megawatt machines, and in the place of 20 turbines we can have, like, one third of the number of turbines and have almost thrice the amount of capacity installed. Like, even if we just have around let's say 6 turbines, we can have around 15 megawatt coming from there. So it does definitely justify putting money into it, but it's a different question of what magnitude of money will have to be put in or invested into this. Like, the energy generation could definitely be roughly around 4 times, whereas the capacity increment will be around 3 to 3.5 times. And it's a question of about what will be the investment. Investment could also be, in the range of 3 to 3.5 times maybe. But we should also consider that there is already some amount of infrastructure in place, like, let's say, the roads which are there already, and some amount of development has already been done. So it definitely is a question of how people look at it, how soon they can get onto it and do it, um, because it's like whether we are ready immediately to do it, or we'll have to wait for machines to come in which will cater to that kind of requirements.
Okay, okay. And in a scenario where you might have multiple developers, occupying different sections of the same wind farm, how would companies negotiate these inter-turbine clearances, especially with the new MNRE policy, which I think speaks about 5D by 70, if I remember the specification. Correct. If, let's say, just hypothetically, if Renew wants to do repowering of its sites, but say Orange doesn't want to do. I think how would those kinds of conversations be handled? Have they come up? Is that going to be an issue going forward in your view?
Yes, it definitely is something which we need to ponder, because there are there are 20 turbines which are owned by few, like, let's say, few people there. But when it becomes a repowering, it'll mean that the number of owners would be more, but the number of turbines might go down. So that definitely is an arrangement that needs to be pondered, of how the setup will work. Maybe some equities may be there, and 4 people together invest into it and divide the revenue or whatever comes out of it in proportions. Some sort of arrangement has to be come out of this. Coming out of this. So yeah, that is definitely an
Okay.
important thing.
Okay, okay. And one last question before I move on to the other analysis. So this evacuation was another issue which Krishnaji spoke about. The likelihood of more generation coming in. We might need to augment the transmission system connecting that wind farm. Also, there have been conversations about hybrid power plants coming in, where you try to put in solar and also optimize the daytime utilization of the land. Are, in your experience, are developers also looking at that, or is it, or when they say repowering, do they only talk about the wind, or are they also open to putting in solar assets also?
I think there certainly is a lot of interest with hybrid. I would say even including storage, not just wind and solar, but also including storage in it. There certainly is a lot of interest around that. And in our experience, when we've looked at a lot of operational assets, in a period of, let's say, around 2013, 14, 15, we've seen sites where there has been curtailment to the tune of almost 25 to maybe 30% even. But I'm sure this is improving currently. And given a lot of efforts are being done towards augmenting the infrastructure, the repowering will definitely necessitate that the infrastructure for evacuating power will also improve. And it was mentioned in the presentation that the 11 kV lines are a bit of a question there. So there needs to be a lot of augmentation done to the power evacuation, but it will definitely mean that a lot more power can be evacuated in Seoul. So it's a sort of a win-win situation.
Thank you, Ms. Lakshmi. I'll now turn to
Thank you.
Mr. Krishnan Iyer. Sir, are part of you lead Indian Wind Power Association. So potential. Krishnajit spoke about the potential in his presentation. As you also know, MNRE has come out with their policy recently. Tangetco also came out with document. There was also a hearing conducted in the TNERC. What, in your view, are some of the practical challenges preventing, large scale adoption of, repowering? Why aren't we seeing, very, while Ms. Lakshmi spoke about interest from the clients, do you see it translating it into, rapid and scalable action on ground?
Thank you, Deepak. First of all, I thank WRI India for taking this initiative and taking this forward for this discussion. Now, I will take a few minutes more. First is wind turbine started installation in 1986. At that time, it was mostly some improved or second. That is still continuing. And then 90s onwards, then this regular production has come. And 95 onwards, it is accelerated. Now, these are most of these turbines are only some 25 to 30 years old. 3,000, 4,000 machines are there. Recently conducted study conducted by UAE. And these turbines are occupying the high windy sites in Tamil Nadu. It's a class 1 sites, class 2 sites. And most of them are not working because there is a lack of spares, there is a lack of maintenance, and most of the OEMs or the people who supplied those turbines are not in existence. Now, this repowering is not taking place. This I tell you that repowering is defined. It's 1-to-1 is also repairing. You replace with the old machine 1-to-1, 4:1, 8:1, or in a cluster of things. Like there is some confusion about us. What is repowering? They say that this will take up lands and everything. It is not the reality. It's not whatever Krishnajit just said. I know. I will come to that later. So there are people who are corporates who have got continuous lands with some 40, 50 machines. I will not name those people because I am in touch with most of them. And they are all interested in repowering, replacing this. Now the problem is about there is a lack of policy framework. So that is what is happening. Now, in 2015, I have been fighting for this, repowering for the last 10 years. In 2015, IDM Infrastructure has conducted a study in support of this MNRE and GIZ, that is Indo-German. They are the cooperative partner of this KFW. So I was also part of the study. We association IWPA has facilitated the study. I also went up to some sites for this study. And they submitted a report in 2015. And that was, in fact, that draft report was discussed in our IWPS International Conference, where the MNRE officials were also there. And based on that report, they came out with a policy in 2016 August. MNRE has come out with a policy. And so far, now 4 years now, Tamil Nadu has not, normally when MNRE comes out with a policy, ministry comes up, so other states should follow it. But so far, this Tamil Nadu has not come out with this any corresponding policy. About a year back, what they did was so one of the conditions was that, the last 3 years average excess production has to be sold to the DISCOM. So that is, so what they did was they made a draft policy and put it to the TNERC. TNRC took last December 4, there was a public hearing, and after that they have not done anything. So we again approached them and saying that you come out, at least you decide on this issue so that they can revise this policy or issue this policy. But so far nothing has been done. And at that time they said that first let us decide this control period order. Now that they have come out with the order also, there they said that there is no more any FIT, feed-in tariff. Only all these the tariff has to be discovered through this bidding under section 63 of the so now we have decided to file a petition for the TNERC, which I think we will go to dismiss this petition because it has become instructions. They came to TNERC for fixing the tariff. Now no tariff can be fixed. So we hope that this after this is dismissed, then this the Tamil Nadu government will come out with some policy so that some action will be. Now the three main issues of this Manari policy is that this grid augmentation should be done by the state, which no state is willing to do that. Second is the that the excess production has to be given by this thing, and that also most of the investors are not happy with that. Now third is that the micro siting guidelines, 70 into 5D and has to be relaxed. That also they are not willing to do it. So there is some difference of opinion on this between this central policy and the state policy. So that we have again taken up this matter with MNRA today. That what Krishnaji has shown is a study conducted submitted in 2018. Subsequent to that, and there they pointed out that certain these 2016 guidelines issued where there are certain shortages, there are some shortcomings, so we have to modify that. So they have not taken any action. Even this, in fact, that report was forwarded by the present Joint Secretary in the Ministry, was but no action has been taken. Now, if you compare why this policy framework is important, because it will take some the administrative block. Sometimes if you go for this repowering for any one-to-one machine or anything, they have a discretion. They may or they may not give that. So you have to be after them. They take 6 months, 1 year. So some policy comes. This repowering can, if somebody wants to hold the machine, but they are and I want to replace with another machine, or even 4 machines. 250 can be replaced with 1 megawatt machine, or that is 2 megawatt. So this is not happening. But if you compare this with what happened in Europe, Germany or Denmark, how this has happened because there is a policy framework, strong policy, and then repowering has been properly defined. Here we are not defined because now people are saying that okay, life extension is also repowering. Okay, that is all there. But here we are not defined. And you will never find repowering word in any of the Central Electricity Act or the National Tariff Policy or any government documents. You will not find any word. So this first thing is that the framework has to come. We are working for that. We are every month we are meeting with the secretary and monthly meetings. We are taking up this matter. We hope that they will rise to the occasion and then we come out with some policies. Second is that there is no incentive. Even though this IDM infrastructure has suggested several incentive in 2015, they have not accepted any of these incentives. Only they said that if you take loan from IREDA, you will get 0.25% subsidy. So that is many people are not taking it, and you say many people have their own money to do that. These corporates. But the problem is this lack of policy, and then government support. Then this augmentation, as you said that. Now even the energy coming out of that 2 or 3 times cannot be accepted. How can we put the hybrid? Hybrid means more energy will come there, the storage or anything. So this is the issue which is coming up, because this is what we require is the policy support, and this what incentive may be there, may not be there, but this has to come. But the government has to come out with a policy framework. Then only the repowering can take off. It has not taken off so far. One door or two exception, somebody has done it. One machine has been done it. Recently, about 2-3 years back, Gamesha has done some repowering, because replacing it is not really repowering, because there is no policy. So what will happen is that this unless I am very glad that you have taken up this issue. This is you have highlighted this repowering in Tamil Nadu. Tamil Nadu has the highest potential, and second is Gujarat. So these IDM infrastructure studies in Gujarat and Tamil Nadu, then they submitted the report. That particularly that report is not in the domain, I think, because it was given exclusively to MNRE. So based on that, they did it. So this is the issue, which is we are pressurizing this government come out with a policy which should be acceptable to the state and the investor. So these dialogues are happening. We hope that they will come out with a policy very soon. And another thing which I wanted to say is that this turbine technology has improved for the last 20 years. If you say that, all those machines which were installed before 2000, the CUF or the PLR 47 is around 18% or less than 18%. Actually, it is 12 to 13, 14. And the new turbines are 35 to 40. So this energy, coming out with will be the 1 megawatt will be some say 25 to 30 lakhs unit. It is now it is getting a 12 more. That is almost 2 to 3 times. So the problem is that if that kind of energy comes, the grid augmentation from the pooling station is required to be done by the state. Now they said we will not do it. The investor has to put in their money. Investor has to put these. So the problem is that many people are not interested in repowering because there is no incentive from the government, and most of these machines are all it's a zero value. There is no value. In particular area where this 12 megawatt is there, it could go 36. So it is a national base. Nobody is thinking that way. But provide some policy incentive, policy framework for incentive or this grid augmentation comes. I am sure that this repowering will start taking place.
Mr. Nair, and very loud and message that the government support is needed. It is though wind is fairly established, repowering as such needs a significant help from there. So there were a couple of points you mentioned. One related to the progress of repowering in Europe, and I think this is an ideal time to request Daniel from Wood Mackenzie to talk about, and since you analyze the Europe and Asia Pacific markets, can you talk us a little bit, elaborate on what Mr. Nair spoke about, why repowering has taken off in Europe, and what are some of the lessons that India can take from that?
Sorry, I just wanted to be clear. The question here is why has repowering taken off in Europe, and what are the lessons that can be brought to India? Is that correct? Okay. Yeah, sure. I mean, to a certain extent, yes, you can say repowering has taken off in Europe. However, that's largely driven by the German market, where they have already had aging assets from a long, long time ago. In truth, it is not that Europe has a strong trend towards repowering. In fact, many issues remain with regards to repairing, and a lot of the issues that you see with regards to repairing in Europe are very similar to the issues that you see in India as well. Consider the following: in Europe, the best wind sites, the ones that are the oldest, are the best wind sites, and they've already been built out by old aging assets. And of course, you have the same issues that you have in India with land lease negotiations, appropriate equity compensation for the asset owners, so on and so forth. So that is an ongoing question, and it is, as our colleagues have mentioned already, one of the big risks for government policies anywhere is that these turbines, which are aging assets from aging equipment that are likely from defunct manufacturers, and therefore do not have the technological support that they would normally get otherwise, need to be replaced wholesale. And yet there is no policy, perhaps besides a few countries, Germany and Italy might be an example here, for which that policy incentives encourage repairing of these plants wholesale. So once these plants come to the end of life, and once the subsidy schemes on these plants are finished, the current policy incentives may in fact encourage decommissioning wholesale. And that is a big problem because those are good wind sites, and repairing with better rating capacity projects, better rating capacity turbines is definitely the play here, especially considering that many European countries have mandated clean energy targets by 2030, 40, and 50. So that is a big shortfall if governments let that fall back to the wayside. However, Europe has certainly been aware of this, and many countries are now, or rather many regulations and governments around the world, around in the European Union rather, are actively debating legislation as we speak to accommodate all the key issues that our colleagues today have already raised for the Indian market, which are proper incentives for repairing, land lease negotiations, equity compensation, or rather fair share value for all the different stakeholders involved in a particular project. One of the big problems that we see in Europe, perhaps not so important for India, is what we would call the NIMBYism, not in my backyard, by local communities who no longer want to see these turbines dotting the landscape. The problem that you have with these turbines in good wind sites is that because they're old aging assets, they are much smaller, but replacing them wholesale, you could replace maybe 150 1 megawatt or sub megawatt machines with maybe 25 megawatt machines. That certainly would reduce the number of turbines on the land, but would increase the eyesore supposedly because they are much higher. And this is one of the ongoing questions that need to be resolved, is that the community equation. How does the community respond to such a thing? To give another example, in Denmark, though there is active legislation and policy support for renewables and wind turbines in general, by a certain time period, I think by 2030, Denmark must reduce, or rather policies currently encourage Denmark to reduce not so much the capacity, but the number of overall operating turbines. In other words, repairing them significantly from 4,000 or so turbines down to 1,800 turbines in general. And really does depend. These kind of regulations are really onerous and do not incentivize repairing to a certain degree because it's just so hard to navigate this kind of policy landscape. And this is something that I think India and the local state bodies such as Tamil Nadu need to be aware of. Driving those repairing is important, and driving, encouraging investment in replacing those old machines is important. But care must be taken by the policymakers to ensure that policy that is encouraging, or rather the policy that's developed for wind turbines, is not hampering the repairing overall due to NIMBYism effects and community responses.
Okay, thanks. And one other, and interesting to know that both the EU zone as well as India are roughly in the same boat, if I may use the term, in terms of where they are in terms of progress as far as repowering is concerned. So one other argument that is strongly in favor of renewables and is being quoted a lot is the potential for a job creation. Do you see repairing and repowering by themselves contributing a lot to that share?
Sorry, I missed that. You're cutting in and out a little bit.
No,
Okay, so
I want to say that, yeah. So the one argument which is being made in favor of renewables is the potential for job creation on a per megawatt basis, whether full time or part time. How much do you think repowering by itself would have could contribute to that share?
it is an interesting question. In truth, if you just take into account a standard 20-year metric for your volume of turbines that need to be repowered, and say, okay, at the end of the 20-year lifespan, those turbines need to be repowered. In truth, repairing is a small fraction of the overall new build capacity going forward. But that's not to say that repowering is not going to contribute to the job market in any way. Certainly what we're seeing in a market like China, this is not related to repairing, but it does give a picture of what's going on there. The current boom to build turbines means that certain operations and maintenance activities have to be pushed back a little bit, or rather certain spare parts may be a bit more expensive because so much is focused on the new build activity. And repairing may very well fall into the same boat. I'm assuming we looked into the market in India, and India, of course, like many other leading wind powers, is going to continue to accelerate the wind build out going forward in the next 10 years. If that happens and repowering also starts to take off, then you have two almost the same but slightly disparate forces that are competing for the same resources and same equipment, and importantly for the same job. So there's definitely a positive net impact on jobs if repowering is encouraged and
Okay, thanks. So we'll now move to Captain Kishore. So Captain, one of the things is, as you would have followed the discussion now, is that repowering still needs some time to take off, which means that the old assets are still going to continue in service for some more time. Based on your experience in the maritime space, in the what kind of service strategies could be adopted from other sectors to increase the value of wind assets in operation?
Thanks, Krishna, to get me in. Thank you very much, WRA, for calling me in. Panel, I'm like a googly, as you would say in the IPL stands, out of the blues from a different sector. But let me go back to, let me make you understand that I am from the villain sector. That is that of fossil fuel, which of course all of us don't want to see going forward by 2050, when the world wants to change over to pure fuel, renewable as we would call it. But then coming back from there, please understand that both the upstream and downstream of the pure energy sector, the fossil fuel sector, you call it oil and gas, coal, or whatever it is. On the downstream side, it had a similar kind of infrastructure optimization, infrastructure, restructuring, possibly 30, 40 years back. I myself have been in panels when I used to work out of Monte Carlo on a similar thing where suddenly sizes started, like, if you have 4 units of 25,000 units each, you made it into 100,000 unit asset, which possibly, yes, at that time, as it is to you, all of you now, seems to be the best solution, because, hey, why do you have to spend on 4 units when you have a single unit doing much better job, and so on and so forth. So a lot of things, a lot of mistakes we did, and a lot of things we learned over a period of time. And I see a similar thing. Of course, for me, this is the second or third or fourth innings as far as the wind energy or the renewable energy is concerned. And it's literally after retirement, to be precise. But coming back to that, I see a similar kind of thing. When it came to oil and gas, it was initially started with the land-based, which then went to offshore, and then went further offshore to deep sea drilling. As simple as that, as technology and everything increased. And similar thing is happening, I see, in wind, coming from land-based into offshore. And now I believe many places in Europe has got this floating wind structures. It can go deeper into the sea. It's what you call this tethering, anchoring. Those kind of things are happening that way. Having said that, I want to just revisit some of the points which was made, which is very, very nice. One of the things is a combination of the two, as Lakshmi had said. She said maybe. But yes, I was a technical advisor to DNV some years back, possibly decades back, Lakshmi. And that time also, this was one of the things that was discussed when the maritime went through a combination of things. Number one. Number two, Mr. Nair, really, I mean, that was that opened my eyes to what exactly is the problem or the solution and things like that. It did talk about policy perspective. He did talk about how things could be done and what it could be. But remember that one of the things that we made as a mistake then and then corrected is that the asset owner is extremely important to be a part of the policy as we make it. Daniel very rightly said that one is if you increase the size of the tower, it's going to be an eyesore, especially on places like Europe. May not be a problem in our country. I don't know, or maybe it is a much better thing to have. So on and so forth. But the fact is that the combination of these two, the one which is the existing asset as it is, how to utilize that to the best of advantage, along with the combination of some power, some amount of repowering. Mr. Nair rightly said we have not defined repowering. I'm coming from a completely different sector. I would possibly call it as renew powering. I mean, it is repowering as well as new. This again was done in the maritime sector in the 70s, 80s, where we called it as re-aging. A ship which was getting old, if it was maintained very, very well, and it is certified then by the class societies like DNV, GL was separate at that time, and Lloyds and ABS and so on and so forth, what you called as IAX members. They used to certify and re-age the particular asset to say that, hey, it is 20-year-old, but it is as good as 5-year-old. It can run another 20 years. And this kind of a risk is normally not taken up by the asset owner himself because he's already put in a lot of money, he's earned money, he's not very interested. This is where the third-party asset managers come in. They are easily able to take the risk. They've already transferred the risk to a professional risk carrier on the other side. You have some certain policies, structures toward this. There is another set of transferring the liability, indemnifying towards the liability coming out of it. And that is the time when large amount of third-party asset managers came in. And today, believe me, 30 years hence, it is only the third-party managers who manage the assets, literally. The asset owner just buys it, leave it to the third-party manager to manage it, sell it, do it, everything, give me the money. That's the end of it. That's a kind of thing. So the asset manager literally operates with a 4 or 5 member team sitting in one corner in Monte Carlo, for example. That's a tax haven. I myself work there. And the rest is all done by third-party asset managers. So these are the kind of solutions that was found at that time in that sector. It will be unfair of me to compare that sector with this. Remember that sector, we are identifying the prime mover as an oil or coal or something, moving it and then producing energy. Here, your energy is coming right from the source, literally. But on the other hand, mind you, exactly the same way as that we went offshore and then deep offshore and then to deep sea to find this prime mover, you are going also to the best wind areas, as Mr. Nair has high wind areas or class A areas or whatever it is, and then to offshore and further offshore and so on and so forth. So it is, even though it is unfair to compare, it is correct also to look at it. On the second hand, to answer your question when you started, Deepa, is the fact that, remember that when it comes to the number of components, Mr. Nair also made a comment that the OEMs are no more there, they've gone away. Daniel made a comment that the Chinese guys who manufacture are more interested in newer equipment rather than repairing, But on the other hand, you have to realize that part of it, the repairing and re-aging or making it younger, you could say. Yeah, that's something which we all want to do as we grow older. My age, yes, I want to be 30 plus. But that jokes apart, that identifying the right things and then getting it to work. Mind you, the number of components involved in my sector is possibly 50, 100 times more than what a wind turbine could have. When that sector could do it, I think you can do it at a much lesser subset. I personally feel that a combination of these two, having the existing ones so that the asset owners of the existing assets know how to renew their and move it forward to find the best solution, along with, of course, it should be given an option. But the policy makers, it is very, very important for the policy makers to understand both aspects of it before they come with a very strong and unviable policy. Because from policy comes regulation. And regulatory bodies and certifying bodies is going to find it difficult if the policy is not so structured to assist both the end user as well as the provider. So this is a kind of combination. I'm not an expert in this sector to give more than that, but this is what I have learned from my sector, which I wanted to share. I'm open for any discussion on this.
Thank you so much. And the idea of this third-party asset management, to handle these assets, I think it has caught on in the wind sector also. Especially, at least I am aware of these asset managers helping, the wind developers in, day ahead planning, ensuring that wind farms are scheduled as per whatever prediction they make, depending on the weather conditions. So I think I am familiar with that side of things, but of course, they must also be helping in the predictive maintenance and identifying what are the hotspots in the particular domain. That definitely must be catching on. So thank you for sharing those insights with us, Captain. And I'll just, since we have last 17 minutes or so, I'll turn to Krishnajit and, so the entire discussion revolved around a lot of what you had presented on the Tamil Nadu situation, Tamil Nadu having the highest potential for repowering. So just focusing on that state in particular, do you think enough micrositing studies have been done so far? What are again? You also spoke about the grid augmentation. But now with the green energy corridor discussions coming in, do you think, in your view, they are focused more on greenfield projects, or some of that corridor space, or I mean, it's not. Yeah, this corridor space can be also considered for repowering.
Yeah, Deepak. Yeah. So regarding that query of microsetting, have such microsetting have been done from the perspective of repowering? I am not so sure. But as far as this grid augmentation efforts are concerned, you rightly mentioned green energy corridor, and Tamil Nadu is one of the state where there are substations which are identified, there are transmission lines which are identified as part of green energy corridor. But that is again going to actually help augmenting the, so to say, high capacity or high voltage, extra high voltage kind of transmission infrastructure. Here, the core problem with evacuation, as I was mentioning, specifically for Tamil Nadu, is like there are these low capacity wind turbines. They are mostly connected to 11 kV kind of feeders and so on and so forth. So to that extent, basically upgradation what is required is at the pooling station level, or even as far as this lower, so to say, sub transmission level upgradation, that is what is required. There STUs have got a major role to play, and as policy had intimated, it is basically the role of the utility to actually, utility as in the STU to actually plan for this sub-transmission level beyond the pooling substation. So that is a key parameter, even though development have been happening in or planning have been happening at green energy corridor, or so to say interstate transmission level. This intrastate transmission is something which one need to focus, and having adequate spare capacity or adequate increased augmented capacity at pooling substation level and beyond for evacuation. That is something which one need to focus. I mean, yeah.
Thanks, Krishnajit. And I think we are almost at the end of the panel discussion that time. But before we get into the Q&A, I wanted to see if any of the panelists have want to respond to what others have said. If you have any questions for each other, could take about 2-3 minutes to do that.
I just had one question. This is out of my interest as well, to understand if there are turbines available if we want to, do the repowering. Are there machines that would suit the sites which are, let's say, even if in Tamil Nadu, if we look at the sites which are like really windy and wind-rich sites, do we have turbines which are available already, or do they have to be customized and developed further to suit such sites?
Anyone in particular you want to direct it to, Lakshmi? Maybe Mr. Nair or Krishnajit or.
Shall I?
Yeah,
I will answer. Now this, the most of this turbine you are talking very old one, 25, 30, 35, and many are the banned. It is not working. Because it is still, you will find that, there are not even a life extension also. You need some OEM or somebody to replace those old, parts. That is also not there because the blades may be 10 meter long. So who will repair that? So this life extension is there. Yes, in our case, a 15 to 20-year-old, this can be done in what is happening in. But here, most of these smaller machines, 250 kilowatt. There is no OEM available. There is no operational maintenance people are available. So these are the thing they are doing it. You will find, when they are with them infrastructure for study, in Mupandal, there are due banks when 2 blade machines, which were imported from, Lagarways is very good. So these are running, but it is not generating much. So there is no question of, there is no parts available. What they do it, whatever, so some people, some like that, you are putting ambassador car, some Maruti parts or something like that. So it is running somewhere, but it is not generating. So you will have the PLF will be 8%, 10%. So like that, those machines, there are machines, going up to 25. Now the latest machines are certified for 25 years. Earlier machines before 2000, it was only 20 years certified. It is certified for this. That means after this certification has come to an end, so you have to recertify for a life extension or decommissioning or repowering. These are the 3 options available at the end of the lifetime. Because then this whatever is written in the type certificate, so it's a 20 years now. It is coming over the type certificate of 25 years. You know very well that what is happening. So this thing like that, life extension also, this is because now this repowering and life extension are different. In India, they are not talking about repowering means entirely replacing. It is replacing the old one with a new one. Life extension means you are changing it, certifying it, you take the blade and clean it and everything. This is a refurbishing. So this O&M will do that. They just certify that yes, this will go for another 2 years, 3 years, and every time that was also discussed when we recently had discussed about the DNV was also part of this Indian wind turbine certification scheme, which has been put on hold. There they said that after 20 years. Compulsorily somebody has to certify this, some chartered engineer or some certifying agency. DNV said they cannot do that, they don't have the people with them. So that otherwise they would have come out with that. That now it is on hold in the ministry. So there are 2 parts. So this is a certification scheme. Another is the safety and performance. Suppose safety means after 20 years, compulsorily the machine should be certified by somebody that it has got a residual life, or if it is working less than some 12 or 13% PLF, it should be removed. It should be decommissioned or it should be repowered. So this is what is happening. So this thing, there are possibilities. But what is important is that there should be some sort of a policy, and then the asset owners will decide. What is to be done. I have the option to repower, decommissioning, or extension of life. It's left to me. But the government has to come out with a policy or some enabling framework for doing the work. That is exactly we wanted.
So just in line with what you just mentioned, Mr. Nair, so Patha Jawar has a question about, given all the benefits and solutions that have been identified, what could be the reason that policies are not providing enough incentive? Is there a sense that government is free powering?
So this, the electricity is, it is not in the central government and state government can make policies. Central government cannot impose anything on the states. This, that electricity is a subject that, now this guidelines issued by the MNRE is not being honored by the states. They said that the MNRE said grid augmentation from the pooling station level should be done by the STU. So this state is not, say that we don't have money, we cannot do it. So now we have put up this back to the ministry saying that, yes, you find out some solution. So they otherwise use financing. So if the state is doing it. So, but if you are asking the investors to do grid augmentation, also invest in the new machine, so it may not happen. So there will be again there will be a this status quo will say that yes, why should we do it? At least I am getting some energy from that, so I will continue with that. I don't have any. It's a zero value for my assets. So many people saying that 30 years, 45 years. So they said, okay, where should I spend money? And then where should I? The government is not supporting, no incentive. And I'll tell you one example, how the incentive works. You know, this in US, last year, this PTC, that's the production tax credit is there. So even almost all the even 15-year-old machines have been repowered because they are getting 10 years, this incentive. So some incentive or something, there is motivating the people to do this. People are ready. There are people who have got money to do this. I know so many corporates. I am also in my company. They are making this machine suitable for this, class 2 areas because not many machines are available. So we are in touch with many people, and all this I am getting the feedback from them that they are ready to repower, but there should be some policy, some enabling policy framework should be there. So then things will start moving. And then all this, Krishna said that, the land has to be voted. That is for the investors to do it. Where the government should bother about it. Government's job is to bring the policy. They should not get into the, amalgamating the, they say windy sites and everything. So then that will be done by the private people or other things like that. Or somebody will come and buy this land and do it. But let them do this policy, and there is a some incentive, whatever is possible to motivate the people to do that. So this should be done with, but it's for the state.
Then the next question is more towards the other end of the spectrum, as in assuming if we do end up doing repowering on a large scale, and this was also something we discussed. So what are the solutions for dealing with the old machines? And in particular, this is something which, Daniel also could take up. There is a question about whether there are examples of, safe disposal or reuse techniques for the old machines. Outside India, do we have example of recycling or safe disposal? What are the rules around that?
Now, repowering has not yet taken off, but some small level people are taking away these old machines are doing it. Now the car, after 15 years, the car is going to be done away with, and they are making some certain areas for that, So when this thing started, because now there is no market, after 20 years, there is no market. Earlier, what they do is that, used to export it to some African countries and everything. Now that is not there. After 20 years, there is no scope for it. It has to be break on, and this is the parts can be used for some other thing. So that is not an issue. Most of these machines, either steel, these towers are made of steel, or some concrete. Old machines are made of steel only. They can be broken up and it can be used for the recycling. There is not an issue.
So, Daniel, similar practices in Europe in terms of using the parts of the old machine.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Yes, so with regards to European asset owners, certainly those with more sophisticated O&M practices do cannibalize old machines to keep their existing fleet going, depending on the certain technology types. And I suppose if you were a canny service provider in this operation space, you would see that there's a potential market opportunity for refurbishing old parts to keep existing technology going, especially, as I mentioned before, where the OEM is now no longer operating. And of course, in India, just like in Europe, there are several equipment manufacturers with fleets still running the ground, but the equipment manufacturers are no longer operating or supporting those machines. I suppose one of the big problems that we see in Europe is that I think by 2030, 2040, we see anywhere up to 40 to 60 gigawatts of turbines going to be taken offline and replaced whole scale. And while you can recycle many of the components of the entire power plant, the one biggest problem that still remains is the recycling of the blades. All these blades coming down, right now, the only solution for them is to put them into the ground and put them into landfills. Landfill rates in Europe are expensive to the point that many are actually turning away turbine blades at the recycling, and they're certainly doing that in the States as well. I don't know yet about India, what the Indian plan is for allowing or the disposal of aging blades into landfills, but that is certainly an issue for all global markets, not just India, but for all global markets to address this blade disposal problem.
And maybe we have time for one last question, and I think Krishnajit, you would be best placed to take this. So Mohammed Ikram has asked, there is no banking for new wind projects in TN. Would repowering change their existing banking status? My guess would be no, but would request you to also begin.
Yeah.
Shall I answer this?
So, yes, Nair sir, you can.
Yeah. Now this in the the policy, draft policy which they TNAB has made, they said that this repowered machine will be treated as a new machine. Therefore, this banking is not available because the existing, in the new policy also they said that existing turbines will get another two more years, full banking, April to March. So that will come as a disincentive for repowering because the old people, the moment they repower, they will use the banking. So this is what has happened. So we have discussed with this minister and other people also that they said no new machines will not get any banking. So you can get 1 month free banking. That's all. But for other existing things, it will be for another 2 more years in the control period. So this is what.
Thank you, Mr. Nair. And with that, we are right on time. And I would like to conclude by thanking all the speakers and the audience for your time and interest in this topic. So definitely we learned a lot, as we continue our work under what we call the Sustainable Energy Transformation Tamil Nadu Initiative. So this is an initiative that facilitates higher clean energy deployment in the state, by working with stakeholders to find sustainable and equitable solutions. This is a collaborative initiative by Auroville Consulting, Citizen Consumer and Civic Action Group, and Navigera India. We will continue to host similar discussions on various topics related to the state, and would request you all to continue engaged on this as well as the future topics. So thank you everyone once again, and have a nice day and take care.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Deepak, Kajol. Thank you.
Thank you to the panelists and to the participants as well.
Thanks, Kajol. Bye.